Occasionally here on the Kermode Uncut site, I like to draw your attention to a DVD release as opposed to a cinema release. And this week I want to bring to your attention Antichrist, which has just come out on DVD. Now, you probably all know about it, but the film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May of last year. It was a Lars Von Trier film, so therefore it was in Cannes. There was a big controversy about it. There was booing in Cannes. I asked somebody to text me a one-word verdict on the film because I wasn't at Cannes. I wanted to know, and the word that they texted me was abomination. By the time it got here, there was a whole media storm about it. It was being described as the most violent and corrupting movie ever made. Whoa, the BBFC are going to ban it. No, they aren't. Of course, they aren't. They're very sensible nowadays. The movie came through. I saw it, and I liked it very much. I had a couple of reservations, a couple of moments when I thought, oh, Lars, stop it. But generally, I thought there was really something there. And I was on air on the Simon Mayo show with Willem Dafoe, and he and I had a disagreement about what the film was about. I said it was about misogyny. He said he disagreed. I said, that's fine. You just made the film. I watched it. Therefore, I'm more qualified to say what it's about than you are. Anyway, now the film is out on DVD. It was in my top 10 of the year list, incidentally. And a couple of critics have been trying to sort of isolate the influences on the film. People have pointed, obviously, to Tarkovsky, who is cited. The film is dedicated to Tarkovsky. I think that's a joke more than anything. People have mentioned The Omen. I mentioned What Have You Done to Solange. But at the back of Antichrist, for me, is the ghost of Andrzej Żuławski's Possession. Now, Possession holds a very special place in my heart. It was briefly on the Director of Public Prosecution's list of impoundable video nasties back in the video nasty scare of the early 1980s. Like Antichrist, it played at Cannes and created a big stink. And I was very proud that when I used to present the Film 4 Extreme Cinema strand, we presented an uncut version of Possession. It's a really strange psychosexual movie about a woman who has a relationship with a kind of bizarre octopus-like demon creature. Actually, the special effects for it were done by Carlo Rambaldi, who I had the great pleasure of meeting when I made a documentary about Alien. He did the extending mandible alien head, and he did some stuff on E.T. as well. And I asked him about Possession, and he went, ooh, Possession, oh, strange, very, very strange film. A few years later, I was asked by the Tate Britain to put on a film as part of, I think it was a Gothic season they were doing. I said, oh, I'd love to show Possession. I'd shown it at the National Film Theatre as part of a horror season that I did. Anyway, they showed it at the Tate Modern. It was fantastic. It played really well. And somebody fainted whilst watching it. It had to be carried out, which I think is great. I love the idea of a movie that can still make people pass out. Now, the movie keeps getting lost. Sometimes it's hard to get hold of. But for me, it is the film that prefigures everything that's in Antichrist. It has the same shrieking intensity of performance. Isabelle Adjani never been more over the top in her whole life, and a real sort of, shriekingly full-on show from her. It has the same strange occupation of a territory somewhere between horror film and art movie. It has the same philosophical ideas, the idea that there is something about sex and sexuality and gender which is somehow linked with good and bad and evil and, God and the devil, but in a very vague and I think broadly satirical way. And more importantly, it's one of those films that nobody comes out of going, it was all right. I mean, how many people do you know who saw Antichrist and went, it was all right? Nobody sees Possession and goes, it's all right. I know people who've seen it and say it's the most revolting thing they've ever seen. I know people who've seen it and say it's a great movie that they really love. So here's your homework. Track down a copy of Andrzej Żuławski's Possession. If you haven't already seen it, watch it, and then let me know here on the blog. Firstly, whether you think, as I do, that it's a real unsung masterpiece. I mean, a real, genuine art house horror classic. And secondly, whether you think there is as much connection between it and Antichrist as I do. Because if I didn't know better, and I do, I'd say that that's the movie that Lars Von Trier watched before he made Antichrist.